Hey everybody, welcome back to Quarantine Story Time. Day, who knows anymore, but we're going to continue reading Curse of the Mud Spirit. Today we're going to do chapter 6 and 7 because 7 is pretty short and there's 10 chapters, so we're nearing the end. Chapter 6. The next morning, after Andy left for work, it was oddly quiet in the house. The two companions could see that while they were out to play, Andy had hoed and cleaned the garden, tossed the soil, and relocated the bird of paradise out of the pot and into its new home. They could see the garden across the lawn perfectly from their basement window. You know, playing outside yesterday was much more fun than hanging out in this basement, spying on mean old Tammy, said Thomas, hoping to coax the kitten out for another day of fun. We didn't check to see if there were crawfish houses coming from the bank of the river. Maybe we should go back and check. I'm sure we can find my pail and bucket in here somewhere. Well, as long as we're back before the new boyfriend comes home. We missed him yesterday, and I don't want to do that again. With that, the mud spirit tried to bring the wanted objects up to the surface, while the kitten decided to try to look through some of the boxes and crates strewn about them in the basement. It turned out to be a bad decision on his behalf. Nearly all of the boxes were filled with Philip's old things. Pictures, clothes, gardening supplies, knickknacks, and novelties he had gotten Tammy for holiday, or just for any day, in an attempt to make even the most normal, boring days seem special. To the kitten, this was especially depressing and made his soul feel a deep kind of sadness. "This doesn't seem very nice," noted Thomas, but this time the kitten didn't have anything to say in response. During their search, Tammy had walked away and left out of the front door. Climbing the crates to see what was happening, they saw her come around the house and approach the utility table. Searching underneath it, she pulled out a pair of large shears. Upon finding these, she grinned snidely and walked to the garden and sliced the bird of paradise right through the middle. Picking it up, she carried it into the house, not closing the door behind her. She was raised by wolves. "I wonder what she is doing. She can't possibly be admiring the flower in a vase," said the kitten suspiciously, for the first time admitting the truth of what Tammy may have been up to. "But maybe she feels sad for the way she treated Andy, so she's putting it in a vase for him instead," said the kitten, for the first time admitting that Tammy now has affection for Andy and calling Andy by his real name. All these predictions were abolished when the sound of a garbage disposal broke the quiet of the afternoon. No other words were exchanged between the two as they saw Tammy go back to the garden and drop the mangled flower right where she had picked it from in the garden soil. Depressed and oddly stressed out from what they had witnessed, the two heroes decided to stay in for the rest of the day, lest Tammy do something else awful and they miss it. The kitten, getting hungrier, decided that it had been quiet enough since the incident to go and sneak something to eat from the kitchen again. He carefully went up the stairs and stepped onto the linoleum floor. Thomas, in the basement below, wondered why those flowers were called birds of paradise. Did it look like a certain bird that lived in paradise? Did it taste like a certain bird? Perhaps it ate birds, the way that a Venus flytrap eats flies? He pictured himself and the kitten venturing to a faraway paradise in order to find out. They were both wearing khaki-colored safari hats and vests and had machetes in their hands and paw. His thoughts were interrupted by Tammy entering the kitchen and saying, "Hey, little guy, how did you get in here? Don't you have a mommy somewhere?" These words sent a shock down what should have been Thomas's spine, and surely sent an even bigger one through the kitten's, as Tammy bent down and took him into her arms. Thomas could see the kitten over her shoulder, his eyes wide and scared as if he wasn't sure what was going to happen to him next. Not the kind of face you would make if you had just been hugged by the love of your life after 6 whole years of separation. Oh, the horror. "Oh, it's okay, little guy. I'll take care of you. I'll call you Pufferkins. Yes, my little Pufferkins you are. Yes, you are." and to their horror she began walking away, taking the kitten into the depths of the house where the mud spirit could not follow or see. For the rest of the day, the kitten tried to escape to the basement several times with no success. Every time he would manage to leave Tammy's sight, she would find him again, place him back wherever she wanted him. This did not include eating, playing, or really getting to do anything, and the kitten was getting so hungry and so bored. After a few failed attempts, Tammy finally asked, "Well, little Pufferkins, what is it that you want in that basement?" "Are there bad mice down there? Let's go find out." And taking the kitten in her arms, Tammy started down the basement stairs. At this, Thomas the Mud Spirit panicked and quickly hid under the stairs where he hoped he would not be seen. Almost to the mud line at the end of the stairs, Tammy paused and reached above her head, groping blindly for the string that led to the light bulb. Finding it, she pulled it hard, filling the basement with a dim, almost sad yellow light, revealing the 2 feet of mud that now covered the basement floor. Fearing the worst, the kitten started to cry, and the mud spirit began to have objects float up from his depths. A shoe, the toy train, an old shower cap, all out of nervousness. He also began to read Tammy's mind. "Andy, I'm going to strangle him. His gardening project has ruined my basement. Oh, I can't wait to rub this in his face tonight. He will be spending all weekend cleaning this up." The kitten was now facing the mud spirit, but couldn't seem to spot him. He looked from side to side around the entire basement, but needn't even pause when his eyes crossed over the area under the stairs where Thomas was hiding. Hearing the Z pull up outside, Tammy waited a few moments, huffing, puffing, and breathing hard. Hearing the front door, she started back up the stairs, yelling, "Andy, you get in this basement. It's all flooded with mud. What are you going to do about this?" Andy walked to the door. "I told you your gardening would end in disaster. You must have left a hose on outside or something. I just know this is all your fault." Andy walked into the basement, not even noticing the kitten in Tammy's arms, staring at disbelief at all the mess. Tammy left the room, leaving Andy at the bottom of the stairs, astonished at the sight before him. He knelt down to the mud, and looking at the objects floating around, he reached in and pulled out a picture frame. From where Thomas was under the stairs, he could see through the slats that it was a picture of Philip, one that he had seen earlier that same day when they first found the boxes filled with the kitten's belongings. Andy gazed at it for a few moments. Then, balling up the front of his shirt, he wiped the picture clean and said, "Philip, I wonder what happened to you. You seemed like a good man. You're probably better off, wherever you are." Chapter 7. After sitting... Chapter 7. I gave you guys a strong language warning at the beginning. It's Chapter 7. After sitting on the basement stairs for a while, maybe because the room now matched how he was feeling inside, Andy went upstairs to get prepared for the task before him, getting all that mud out of the basement. Tammy was standing at the counter, opening a can of tuna for herself. She would almost never make food, but when she did, it was only for herself, and it was usually to show Andy that she was making something that he could not have. As he entered the kitchen, he saw the kitten for the first time. Since Tammy had put him down on the floor, Andy kneeled, petting him gently on the head, and said very quietly, "So you've gotten trapped in this house too, huh, little guy?" It was odd how his touch seemed so caring, and Tammy's seemed so much like a prison guard. It was the first time the kitten had been petted, and it felt so amazing, like nothing he had ever felt before. As Andy left the room to get galoshes, gloves, and whatever else he may need for the job, the kitten couldn't help but be reminded of how hungry he was while smelling the tuna. He began to crisscross between Tammy's legs, purring and mewing. It was the only way he knew how to show her affection and to get some of the tuna, and like Thomas said earlier, what girl doesn't like a kitten? "Pufferkins, stop it. That's so unbecoming," said Tammy, so the kitten tried to make himself even more adorable. "Stop it now, kitty, seriously," she said louder than before, but the kitten was just so hungry he could not bring himself to stop with such wonderful smells filling the air. Purr, purr, rub, rub, mew, mew. As Tammy shouted, "I said stop it!" she gave the kitten a swift kick with her right foot, sending him up into the air momentarily, then flat on his belly, spinning away from her on the tile floor. Once he came to the inevitable stop, the kitten stayed on the floor, cowering in fear and disbelief of what had just happened. Tammy threw down what she was working with, yelling, "Great! Now I'm in this house with two morons." She picked up the tuna bowl, threw it to the floor, and as it splattered its contents onto the tile, she said, "Well, why don't you have some, you little shit?" Her voice changed a little. "I'm going out. I'll see you sometime." With that, she turned and went right out of the front door. The kitten wondered why she told him she was leaving. Did she know who he really was? Had she seen it in his eyes? From close behind him, he heard Andy's knees crack as he knelt down beside him. In the basement, the mud spirit could read the kitten's mind and felt the same rush of terror that he was about to get kicked again, but instead, Andy scooped him up and cradled him like a baby. With his other hand, he scooped the tuna back into its bowl and set it on the table. He got 2 plates out, but only 1 fork. For a few moments, sitting down at the table, he simply held the kitten with a concerned look on his face. Feeling safe and comfortable, the kitten looked up at him with worry-filled, glossy eyes. Andy began checking his thin little legs one by one to make sure they weren't damaged by the kick. Soon after, he smiled a very sad smile, straightened his glasses, and said, "No one deserves to be treated like that. Today you will eat at the table with me." When he smiled, he looked like Buddy Holly. So we'll get to chapter 8 tomorrow. I never told you it was all a happy story, but I have been told this is the happiest story I've written. So that's it for today. I'll see you guys tomorrow.